This morning, as several states start to reopen some businesses, there are growing concerns over the health and safety of the people going back to work. Are employers ready to have them back without widespread testing? Joining me now is Seth Harris. He was the former acting labor secretary under President Obama. Mr. Secretary, it's always great to have you with us. You say there's been too much focus on the when to reopen and not on the how. Explain.
Well, we hear the President of the United States talking about a rush to open and, supporting protesters who want everything in our economy open right now. But the very complicated details of how individual employers open up their workplaces, we're not getting a lot of guidance on that, either from the White House or from the Federal Labor Department. This is a difficult task, and employers are subject to a legal obligation to make their workplace as safe and healthy as possible. But it's different in every workplace. And so they need a lot of help, and I don't think they're getting it.
Georgia is way out in front on this, with Governor Brian Kemp allowing nail salons, barber shops, tattoo parlors, massage parlors to reopen Friday. They have some safety guidelines that they have put out. Let me put those up on the screen. Touch-free temperature checks for employees, limiting those inside, additional spacing, sick employees should stay home. What more do you think they need?
Well, I think Governor Kemp is reading Donald Trump's tweets rather than reading the plan that came out of the White House. The White House plan said that in order to get to phase one opening, you have to see 14 days of decline in the number of cases in your state. That's not what's happening in Georgia right now. They also talk about maintaining social distancing during that time, and yet Governor Kemp is opening up massage parlors and nail salons. I'm not sure how you sustain social distancing in those contexts. So I don't think that what Governor Kemp is doing and what some of the other governors who are opening up parts of their economy are doing is safe. Employers are not obligated to open. They should only reopen their workplaces if they know that they have everything they need to keep the place safe. Do they have the kind of social distancing that you were talking about? Are they able to keep sick and infected workers out of the workplace? Are they able to create barriers where there's where you can't have social distancing? Do workers have the personal protective equipment that they need? Employers need to make that decision for themselves. They shouldn't necessarily follow the lead of politicians.
You said something really interesting. Employers are not legally required to reopen. It begs the question, what do employees? What are the requirements of employees? And the president was asked a version of this, the issue of liability, yesterday during the briefing by our Caitlin Collins. Let's listen to this.
These companies that open and they have employees come back to work and they get sick, will these companies be liable?
I'll give you a legal answer to that when we look it up, but we are trying to take liability away from these companies. We just don't want that because we want the companies to open and to open strong. But I'll get you a legal opinion on that.
Let me ask your opinion, Mr. Secretary. What are the rights of someone who works at a company that reopens if you don't want to go back to work?
Right. Well, employees are going to be in a difficult position because your unemployment insurance is no longer available to you if your employer calls you back to work. But workers do have the right to work in a safe and healthy workplace under the Federal Occupational Safety and Health Act, and some states under their state occupational safety and health acts. They're also protected from getting sick in the workplace by workers' compensation laws. And for those workers who are not employees, who are contractors, they have a right to sue in tort, a negligence claim against their employer. So employers, the answer to Caitlin's question, which was a fantastic question, is yes, employers are potentially subject to liability, and the federal government has not waived liability. So employers should not rely on that fudge that the president gave at the podium. There is potential legal liability. Now, it might be hard to make out a case, but I think most employers in America try to do what's right under the law, and that means keeping workers safe.
How do you make a case, though? If the president of the United States is suggesting that states should reopen, you have the governor of the state suggesting that it's okay for companies to reopen. How do you make that case in court?
Well, the argument has to be that there are certain guidelines from the CDC, from the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, and from the White House itself that the employer is not following. So if you're standing shoulder to shoulder with your coworkers and your coworkers are sick and they are coughing and you are subjected to that, then there's potentially a case that there's a violation of the Occupational Safety and Health Act, and workers have the right to complain to federal OSHA or their state OSHA, and it is illegal for their employer to retaliate against them. Workers should use that right to make sure that they are being kept safe by their employers.
I got to say, this raises some really interesting questions that I think we're all going to have to face in the coming months. Seth Harris, always great to have you with us. Thank you so much for trying to understand this.
Thanks, John.